Hi everybody and welcome to the Body Listeners. My name is Gayle and today we have a panel that are delighted to discuss their opinions, experiences and top tips on everything health, nutrition and well-being. Today we'll discuss how listening to your body is so important and what are some top tips to become more in tune. First, we are going to listen to Caroline Foran. Caroline, you are very welcome. You've recently became a new parent, so that is a challenge in itself.
Yes.
But I know that you also wrote a blog for VOYA about pregnancy during the pandemic. It's been quite a year for you and your body. So can you tell me a little bit how you listened to your body during that time and its needs?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think it took me a couple of years to learn to really listen to my body and trust that your body is really the most reliable messenger for you, to guide you to make the decisions that serve you well. And I think for so many of us, we spend our lives working against ourselves, trying to fit the mold of what society expects of us, or trying to fit the mold of what well-being should look like, when really it's about what works for us. So while I was pregnant, I was very unwell. I didn't have a great pregnancy and I was tired, and I just gave myself the permission to just, rest when I needed to rest, use my energy when I felt like I had energy. And to this day, I don't make any apologies for it. I very much listen to what my body needs. And instead of berating myself for feeling one way, I work with it and say, okay, well, what do I need right now? What would make me feel a little bit better? What is draining my tank? What is filling my tank? And it's not something that you check in it forever. It's a constant feedback loop relationship you have with yourself. That takes time. It takes time to kind of get there.
Yeah, certainly. You talk very freely and openly, I suppose, about your experiences. And then we also talked just beforehand about nutrients, and you mentioned that you use them as kind of like an insurance blanket, and using supplements in your daily life where you see fit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I try my best to eat well, and I have to say that because Orla's here as well. I do my best, but obviously with hectic life and a life with a baby, sometimes you find that you're just eating a bit of dry toast at the end of the day. And so where you can't hit all those markers nutrition wise, I find that supplementing with the right supplements that you need for your body is sort of like just a little comfort blanket or an insurance policy there that you can fall back on. It's not something I would ever rely on. I think nutrition is incredibly important, but it just gives you the peace of mind of knowing that, okay, if I didn't have this much broccoli this week, I've covered my bases here with the supplements. So it actually, in a weird way, helps me with anxiety as well, because I know, right, at least I've got that taken care of. I don't need to think twice about that. So I think it's really important to have a kind of balance between supplementation and nutrition.
Yeah, that's very true. And I know you speak openly about anxiety as well when it comes to motherhood and everyday life. Have you any tips for those that are listening on how to ease that anxiousness?
It's probably the question I get asked most, and I wish there was one easy solution to help people not feel anxious anymore. But the things really changed for me and turned around when I stopped trying not to feel anxious, and I allowed for the fact that anxiety was present, and I changed my perspective and my relationship with it, and sort of asked myself, okay, what's my anxiety trying to tell me here? So it really helps to check in with yourself, like to go back to the intuition thing and say, my anxiety here is trying to tell me that something is going on. Maybe we're burning the gas, or we're burning the candle at both ends here. Maybe something's not serving us right in work. Maybe it's a relationship thing, and use it as a messenger to guide you to make a decision, whether it's a lifestyle change. So kind of really allowing yourself to accept it and listen to it and give it a chance is probably the most important place to start with anxiety. And then obviously there's a wealth of things that you can do to bring down your stress response. And I think it's really important to say that wellness is really about what makes you feel well. So I think there's a lot of pressure on people to do yoga at 5 a.m. or have a matcha latte, because I think that will help with their anxiety, but only if that makes you feel well and brings down your stress response. If it becomes another thing that you are using as a measure of self-worth, or a tool that you're berating yourself with to be how well are you being, then it's counterproductive. Then it's adding more anxiety to your plate. So it's just really important to think about what works for you, whatever brings down your stress response and gets you into that nice relaxed state, and do it often. That will have a really positive impact over time to get you into a place where you feel more calm on an ongoing basis. But it's really that the most important thing is not trying to rush to get rid of it, but trying to work with it. I keep saying this all the time, but it can't be said enough. You work with yourself instead of against yourself.
Yeah, they're really, really handy tips, because I know anxiety, I mean, especially nowadays, is something that the majority of us experience, be it, on completely different scales, I suppose, at sometimes. But no, thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing your experiences and those tips. Next, we are going to talk to Mark Walton. Hi, Mark. Mark is the founder and the CEO of both VOYA and CR. Mark, we have known each other for many a year now, and you always amaze me at how you guide the company and how you guide VOYA. And obviously our next step has been CR. Can you talk to me a little bit about the idea behind CR and its creation?
Hi there. Yeah, for many years we've been working on research into the area of seaweed and its application in cosmetics. And throughout that time, we've come across a lot of novel compounds that exist within seaweed, whilst working with different universities in Ireland. And we found that there was a huge benefit in the area of supplements, and something which we thought for a very long time that it would make an interesting or an additional brand to the VOYA portfolio. And obviously, in the last 5 or 6 years, we see how people are moving more and more towards their well-being, and particularly as well, I looked at how I was walking the walk, but I wasn't talking the talk. Sorry, I was talking the talk, but not walking the walk. And we decided that it's time to bring out a range of products that have been CR, which really realize the potential of seaweed.
Yeah, I suppose the supplement market can be quite saturated with low-end supplements, so it's beautiful to see a nice premium range of supplements with something different, like the likes of CR and with Oraplex too. But outside of work, you are a very avid prone paddleboarder. I have to take my time when I'm saying that because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. But in connection with your passion, you have also gone through a body transformation. Talk to me a little bit about that and how that happened.
Again, for many years, my wife and I, Kira, we set up the business, and we would travel extensively around the world, and we weren't living the best life. We weren't particularly healthy at all times, and this was very much so a time for change. And it coincides with CR, because CR very much so is a reflection of what we think are the best ingredients that can be possibly used in the supplement space. Obviously, diet is very important, but supplements can help with that. And alongside that, I went through a transformation. So I decided enough was enough, and I focused on making myself as healthy as possible. So in the last year, I've lost 6 stone, and now I'm actively involved in prone paddling, and I train 4 times a week, and I hope to do some outrageous things this summer. Not as much as maybe Mike has done, but I live to his aspiration.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us. From one ocean lover to the next, we have the fantastic Claire Walsh. Hello, Claire, and it is so lovely to have you here with us. Thank you so much for joining us. So Claire, an 8-time record holder freediver, that is some achievement, and also a daily ocean swimmer and a lover of all things ocean positive and wellness. So Claire, thank you so much for joining us. Freediving is your passion. Can you talk me a little bit about your experience when you step into the ocean, apart from the cold?
Apart from the cold, whether going into the ocean, whether it's for freediving, for swimming, it's all about the contrast, for me anyway. So if it's swimming, it's probably 5:30 in the morning, it's freezing cold, I've been up since before 5 o'clock, and the stones on the beach are cold, you're walking over, and there's an element of just being grumpy. And, my friends laugh and ask me, why do you do this if you're going to be like this? But for me, it's part of the pantomime. It's part of creating that contrast, because as soon as you get into the water, you can be in no other moment than that one there. You are freezing and you are gasping, and it is so incredibly immediate. And the same with freediving, struggling to put on your wetsuit, it's usually quite warm. So there's always just that little bit of element of stress. And the minute you go in the water, you put your face in, you immerse your head under completely, and it's just silence. It's so incredible. So both of these, whether sea swimming or free diving, it's pure mindfulness. It's just this moment. And I suppose you get to realize how full those moments are.
Yeah, I've never tried free diving, but even just simply the likes of sea swimming, I know that feeling that when you just immerse yourself in the water, it's just that quietness. And like you said, very much that sense of mindfulness. So yeah, it's something that a lot of people should certainly try, and I know sea swimming is becoming hugely popular. But going back just to your current life, you had contracted COVID, I know. Tell us a little bit about what recovery in that. I suppose we haven't spoken, hopefully, to not so many people who've actually experienced it. What's your recovery process like?
Yeah, so I developed symptoms of COVID on January 2nd, and it wasn't a massive surprise. I had been a close contact. So much of January was consumed with, I suppose, getting through that. And I thought once February hit, February, March, April was kind of, done and dusted, you could move on from it. But that certainly hasn't been my experience. So, there's a term at the moment called long COVID, and so essentially it's post-viral fatigue, and it's experiencing symptoms of COVID once the acute phase has passed. So for me, and it's only been a realization very recently, realizing that this thing isn't going to shift of its own accord. I can't just wait till it passes. So at the moment, I'm in a real sense of rebuilding and taking time to rebuild from the ground up, from a foundational level. So actually looking at nutrition, looking at wellness is absolutely paramount for me at the moment. I think my personality in general, I'd be a little bit more hare than tortoise. I tend to rush ahead and fall asleep just before the finish line. So this is, as frustrating as it is, it's a really good opportunity to take things slower and to build, like I said, a stronger foundation. And from that point of view, actually the supplements, the COR supplements have played a really, really big part in balancing nutrition or, aiding nutrition. And again, it's just a really nice focus on the wellness side of things.
Yeah, and that's where we were talking about, you really very much are at, is building yourself back up from basics. And that's where the COR supplements are really playing a key role for you in that. So I'm delighted to hear that. Well, thank you so much, Claire. Next, we are going to speak to Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
Good. So, Mike, you are an author, a producer, a presenter, but everything relates back to fitness, and that's where your passion is at. Can you tell me any top tips that you've learned about listening to your own body?
Well, I suppose I started with endurance events. Got in my late 20s, I'm getting on now, I'm in my late 30s now. And even running ultramarathons in my late 20s, I didn't realise something as simple as hydration and how important it was to be pre-hydrated before running a ridiculous distance. Like myself and a friend of mine, Brian, did a run from Limerick to Dublin for charity. We made a documentary about it. And as part of the training run for the documentary, we literally got my brother to drive us to Dundalk and just drop us outside of Dundalk on some country road somewhere that as soon as he hit 80 kilometres basically. And then we turned around because the run was going to be about twice that, a little bit more than twice that. So we essentially had to turn around and run back towards Dublin, and that was going to be our training run. And that was a real test, realising I maybe didn't have all the tools I needed. I maybe wasn't using food to fuel my body in the way that I needed to kind of run such an extreme distance. So for me, it was something as simple as hydration. It sounds almost ridiculous in its simplicity, but pre-hydrating before getting ready for something like a really long run. And I also found it difficult during the endurance events that I did, be it an Ironman or be it the Ultramarathon, to take any food on board whatsoever. And if you're doing a particularly kind of crazy ultramarathon and it's 100 miles plus, that's 24 hours plus. It took us, I think, 35 hours to run 130 miles it ended up being. And I couldn't take food on while I was running. So it's now obviously, you know, an ultramarathon is an extreme version of it, but I didn't know that about myself until I was doing it. So I think for something like that, be it on a large scale like that, or be it on a simple scale of a 5 or a 10k run for somebody, it's knowing your body, and it's kind of preparing your body for something like that, be it through food, using food as fuel, be it using electrolytes, or just hydrating yourself properly.
Mm-hmm. I know when we spoke that you had mentioned that kind of back in your early years of fitness, that you were kind of eating the wrong things and then burning them off. Today it's changed though for you. Today you've kind of, is that true to say that you've kind of realised that diet is key to success within fitness?
Yeah, well, I went from ultramarathons to mixed martial arts about 10 years ago, and I started training in MMA, and that's really when I kind of realised the importance of diet in that sense, because weight is a huge part of MMA if you're going to compete. If you're going to compete in jiu-jitsu, if you're actually going to compete in a bout in mixed martial arts, and every athlete in MMA, be it amateur or professional, is acutely aware of their weight and what they're eating. So a lot of these guys would be on meal plans and stuff like that just to manage their weight exactly. So yeah, for me, it's just really, really important to put the right things in your body. So it was a really simple thing. I switched from like fried rice or something like that with a meal to brown rice, and it was not realizing until talking. We used a guy in the Irish Strength Institute for nutrition and strength and conditioning. It wasn't until speaking to him that I'm like, oh, you know, these nuts that I got in a bag that I think have been super healthy, but are actually covered in salt and they've been processed massively. So it wasn't until speaking to John in the ISI where he kind of looked at me like, no, that's...
I think we've all made that mistake, haven't we? We're kind of thinking, gosh, we're doing the right thing here by eating these kind of like healthy processed foods. But yeah, no, it's supplements as well, I presume, have played a key role in your development as well, kind of fill in the gaps where perhaps your diet may not.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I would have used caffeine a lot, for be it in a pre-workout, be it in a coffee or wherever, before training, because all I was thinking about was the training session that I was going to do. And some training sessions are harder than others, and some days you're just not feeling it. Even now, I'm training at home now. Essentially, I'm cross with my kitchen and my back garden, so I'll have a pre-workout to get me through it. And now it's more realizing the posts. Like I'm in my late 30s now, that red light's starting to flicker more and more, picking up injuries and stuff. So I'm acutely aware of my body and listening to my body and injuries and stuff. So, you know, I might have a protein shake post-workout. I'll use BCAAs, I'll use electrolytes, I'll take vitamins, I'll take a multivitamin, which is important anyway for stuff like immunity, especially given what's going on right now. But I think especially coming in to the summer and people training in the heat, and I think a lot of people are going to be training at home, like I am. I'm training, like I said, I'm training in my kitchen. You're going to be sweating a lot, and you have to learn to listen to your body. And other things like form, and like I've picked up a couple of little niggly injuries from attempting to do the CrossFit Open, having never done a CrossFit class in my life, as ridiculous as that sounds. So it's so important to listen to yourself and to play with, you know, whatever supplements. Like look up, do your research on your supplements, and see what you feel you need, or see what you feel like you're missing in your recovery to strenuous exercise.
Yeah, that small little bit of education can make a huge difference in daily life. Thank you so much, Mike. Next, we are going to speak with Orla Walsh. Orla Walsh is our dietitian that is joining us today, and also a new mum. So Orla, congratulations as well to you. Orla, thank you so much. Could you just talk us through, I suppose, the CR supplements, and what stands out for you about the CR supplements?
Well, what I love about the supplements is how it stands out from other supplements, because a lot of the supplements on the market are, well, they're not adding anything very new. So I guess where the CR supplements stand out is that they're using the ocean to provide a lot of the nourishment, and the fact that there's seaweed and nourishment from the ocean within the supplement makes it stand out, really. That combined with the clever use of the vitamins and minerals added.
Yeah, sure. From my own experience, obviously, I've been working with seaweed now for over 9 years, and I just truly am amazed every single day by the countless vitamins and minerals that are in there. But one mineral in specific is iodine. Iodine is a very, very important a mineral to us, but it's one that with dietary changes we are seeing slightly on the decrease. However, obviously seaweed is packed full of iodine, which is very, very important. Can you talk to us a little bit about iodine and the importance to it for our bodies?
So one of the nutrients that seaweed is rich in is iodine, and iodine has a good few years ago there was a bit of research that highlighted that around, well, in summertime half of women were iodine deficient, and in wintertime it was around a quarter. Now since that study has taken place, there's been a lot of dietary changes within the Irish diet, and for example, when we look at the Irish diet and look where iodine comes from, it's very much dairy and it's fish. There's a huge drive for a more plant-based diet at the moment for lots and lots of reasons. And due to that, the consumption of foods that don't come from plants is being impacted. And therefore, that's impacting the iodine intake further. So I'd be curious to see, should the research be done again where the iodine intake stands. One of the richest sources of iodine is of course seaweed, and these supplements do provide iodine. Now iodine is incredibly important for lots of things, including thyroid function, which is responsible for our metabolism, so it's that little gland in the neck. But other things as well, in terms of including the likes of hair and skin and nails and immune function and all sorts, just because of its function with regards to the thyroid. Now, I suppose seaweed is a rich source of iodine, but it's a rich source of other things too, because it actually directly absorbs the nutrients from the sea. In Ireland, we know that the intake of fish isn't where we want it to be. The people aren't eating fish regularly enough, and they're generally not eating enough in totality. And when people aren't eating enough fish, they're not eating many of the nutrients that are available through the ocean. They're really just getting a lot of their nutrients that are coming from plants and the ground. So they're missing out on that. And when people don't eat fish, or they don't eat produce from the sea, they tend to need to supplement. So for example, if you're not eating oily fish, you need to supplement with an omega-3 to replace that nutrient, because there is a deficit in your diet. And one of the interesting things, and I'd be curious in years to come, is iodine one of those things that we're going to actually ask people to supplement, because the intake of seaweed just isn't there. And it's such a pity, because seaweed is such a nutritious food. It can be sustainably produced. We produce seaweed rather well in Ireland, but I suppose I can understand why some people aren't comfortable eating it. So if they're not comfortable eating it, this is where the supplements that include seaweed will come in and will help fill that nutrient gap.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you so much. It's great to get your expert opinion, Orla. But that does bring today to a close. Thank you so much to the panel. It has been really, really interesting to hear all of your top tips and your opinions on everything when it comes to nutrition and well-being. For anyone who wants any information on CR supplements, if you log on to www.voya.ie, you will find them online there, and also a premium stockist as well. Thank you so much, everybody. And it was wonderful to see you all, and hopefully in the not too distant future I get to see you all in person as well. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye everyone.